Do you ever feel frustrated when you know two words, but you're not sure if they're exactly the same or if they have some differences? And then if they are different, how can you use them naturally? Well, we're going to talk about two of those words, convince and persuade. They are the same, but not exactly the same. We're going to be exploring this. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And now let's get into it. One of the most common kind of questions I get is, what's the difference between this word and that word? Yeah, it's reasonable to ask because you have these two words which are very similar or maybe exactly the same. And you want to know what's different. Or can I use them in exactly the same way? Because you want to be able to communicate clearly, right? I always try to remind people to think of these two circles like this. And then a kind of space in the middle. This is a Venn diagram. These two weird eggs are a kind of Venn diagram. And you have, usually, for most words that are the same, a meaning in between that is the same, but then usually over here and over here, you have meaning which is different. And so what I want to do is explore some words and how they are different, how they are the same. Okay? So let's first look at persuade and convince. And I apologize, it looks a little stretched out and a little bit strange because my board is acting up. But persuade and convince. What's the difference between these two words and what's similar between them? What's exactly the same? Well, if you say, right, that after a week of thinking about buying this car that you've been looking at online, you really like it, you finally were persuaded to get it by a close friend. You were finally convinced to get it by a close friend. Which one is more likely? Well, either one, but it depends on really what happened and what thing made you finally make the final decision to say, you know what, I'm going to get it. The thing that persuaded you might be more of an emotional argument. I'm learning to, hold on. I'm literally learning how to write because my pen just got weird and stretched everything out. So let's see. Hold on. E. Oh. Shun. Okay. Oh, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know it looks very easy, but imagine you had to learn how to write for the first time in a totally new way with your other hand. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. Okay. So if you're persuaded, maybe it's about what's going on in your life. You know, you have the money to spend. This is not a big cost for you, and you're always saving, you're always budgeting. You deserve something nice. You deserve it, right? Live a little. You only live once, you know? We have one life to live, not that many days, and you're going to just pinch pennies all the time. That's all you're going to do? Always budget for what? You know? You deserve to splurge a bit. You deserve to just have something nice. So get it. And you say, you know what? You're right. You're right. Well, this to me feels more like persuade. It feels more like an emotional argument, right? So if I say, he persuaded me, he convinced me, generally, yeah, it means the same thing. Somebody said something which made me do it, or he or she persuaded me not to, he or she convinced me not to. Same basic general meaning. They said a thing, they said some things that made me decide not to. But the emphasis is different. So the first one, emotion. Good for your, you deserve it, that sort of thing. Convince is more about, here we go again. I have to give my full concentration to writing this word right now. Are you ready? This is me learning to write. The fourth word I've ever written in my life. L-O-G-I-C. Oh, that was very difficult. Okay. So if there's logic, you're giving arguments for and against, pros and cons, right, to make it add up so that it makes sense. So that I say, yes, that logic has convinced me. Well, yes, convince would be the right word, right? So again, this is not a hard rule where it must be. It must be that when you want to focus on logical arguments, you use convince. And when you want to focus on emotional statements or persuasion, you use persuade. But generally speaking, that's the feeling. That's the connotation we get from these, generally. Okay? So here, what would logical arguments be? Well, okay, well, you make this much. This car costs this much. If I look at your monthly budget, this car, the payments for this car would be 5% of your total monthly take-home pay. That is in the range of what most financial advisors consider to be affordable. On top of that, right, you currently live in a household with two people, both of whom occasionally need to drive, and you only have one car, and there have been times in the past where one person needed the car and the other person had it, causing conflict. So to resolve that conflict, it would make sense to have a second car. So these are not really things I'm saying to make you feel a certain way, maybe. I guess maybe a little bit. But I'm trying to give you logical reasons why it makes perfect sense for you to do this. Or the opposite, not do it. So he or she convinced me not to do it would be to give all these reasons why it's a bad idea. And some of those will have, of course, emotions involved, but it really is the focus here. That is the main difference between persuade and convince. I want to be very clear. It does not mean always you must use only one or the other. If you're talking about emotion, you must use persuade. If you're talking about logical arguments, you must use convince. No. But you may more often use persuade for emotional, an effort to make somebody do something or not do something. And when you're trying to explain the reasons for things, you may be more likely to use convince. So hopefully, now that you understand these, I can persuade you to practice them a little bit. Try to put them in some examples so that you can get a feeling for how to use them. Hopefully I can persuade you to do that. Because if you do that, your English is going to be better. Because you're going to be using words more accurately. You're going to be using language with more nuance. And that's a good thing because it makes you sound more fluent. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to help me learn how to write. I need your support, so please like and subscribe. And also you can get a free course in the links in the description.